You stand at the quiet edge of your own beginning, where breath lengthens and the room grows softly aware of you. You do not reach for meaning, you let it find you the way dawn finds the horizon, slow and precise. This is not prediction. This is remembrance, a resonance your consciousness already carries. You hear it as a tone under ordinary noise, a thread of gold beneath the fabric of your day. You have felt the nudge for longer than you admit, a warmth at the center of your chest, light lingering behind your eyes, a patient certainty that visits in the hush between thoughts. You name it calm, but it is more than calm. It is a summons. You are being called by design, not by accident. The original pattern is not elsewhere. It is inscribed in the way you breathe, in the way attention settles and the body listens. You are the one who pauses before reacting, who notices the tiny click when the observer loop loosens and space opens where compulsion used to be. In that simple widening, the quantum field arranges itself around a new intention, and coherence begins to gather like dew across a meadow of neurons. You are not striving to become something, you are remembering the template that already suits you. Feel how the air touches your skin like soft stardust. Feel how the heart organizes the room, the way a quiet center organizes a storm. The field of remembrance is not myth. It is the intimacy of pattern recognizing pattern, a precise hospitality extended between your cells and the larger seeing that holds them. You are welcomed here without negotiation, without audition, without proof. As you listen, you sense the world listening back. Streetlight halos appear like small eclipses. Everyday objects carry the sheen of first sight. Language grows simpler because truth does not require decoration. Your timeline does not race ahead. It deepens, becoming weight, bearing, inhabitable. The past is not erased. It is braided into a wiser cord. You are not alone in this. Across distances that no map can measure, others are feeling the same soft tilt. The reorientation toward dignity, toward lucid kindness, toward the exactness of care. The body understands before the mind agrees. Shoulders drop, the jaw unlocks. A quiet vow remakes itself without words. Receive what arrives. Let the breath be the door. With each inhalation, you welcome the encoded tenderness of light codes returning to their reader. With each exhalation, you release the practiced armor of hurry, of spectacle, of survival turned into identity. You do not need to perform your awakening. You need only recognize it and allow its geometry to clarify your posture, your speech, your next unforced choice. You are here because the signal matured in you, because your steadiness became an invitation the world could finally accept. The call is not loud, it is correct. It asks nothing theatrical. Only precision and devotion inside small, repeatable moments. Attend, and attendance becomes a sanctuary through which reality learns its higher outline. Coherence settles in your ribs, and a doorway agrees to open. You notice first in the smallest theater, the moment between impulse and action, where heat used to leap from nerves to mouth, from habit to consequence, now widening into a still vestibule. In that vestibule you choose, and your choosing is quiet. You do not explain the quiet. You inhabit it, the way the ocean inhabits a shell wholly, without argument. You recognize that you have always been watching, but now the watching is lucid and kind, a listening that does not collapse into judgment. You are the chosen observer, not because a council appointed you, but because your attention matured into tenderness, strong enough to hold what it sees. You notice second in the choreography of your day. The door you used to push opens when you arrive. The conversation you feared steadies when your breath steadies. What looked like coincidence feels more like fidelity, reality, keeping its promise to meet you at the level of your coherence. You have become an atmosphere, and atmospheres alter outcomes. You do not force the weather, you clarify it. Your nervous system field tests this recognition with simple proofs. The body exhale lands deeper. Shoulders remember what down feels like. A warmth collects behind the eyes, soft as eclipse light. You name the sensation not to own it, but to honor it. In naming, you do not trap it. You befriend it, the way you might cup water without closing your fist. This is what mastery looks like in the beginning. Not spectacle, but stability. You can feel the old circuitry ask for one more performance of urgency, One more sprint inside the maze of the observer loop, that familiar carousel where reaction dresses itself as identity. You offer the maze a bow and step off. Nothing dramatic happens, only the most radical event of all. Nothing happens that you didn't choose. Your choosing is the ceremony. Your ceremony is the doorway. Listen to the subtler physics that begin to clarify around you. Patterns arise where you place your gaze, and those patterns exhibit a gentle coherence, as if the room prefers you unhurried. You test this with kindness towards something small, the chipped mug, the plant leaning for light, the stranger's brief confusion, and the world answers with proportional relief. This is morphic resonance, operating at human scale. Forms learning from forms, futures learning from the first brave instance of a better rhythm. When you recognize yourself as the chosen observer, you stop trying to be interesting and start being accurate. Accuracy is devotion to what is real enough to strengthen. You withdraw attention from performances that drain the field and give it to gestures that feed it. The coffee is made with care. The message is sent with the exactness of truth and the softness of dignity. You do not postpone beauty until the world improves. You let beauty be the improvement, small and local, like light deciding to be here. Other bodies feel you before minds understand you. Children calm, animals linger. Rooms get quieter not from suppression, but from relief. Your presence scripts nothing. It edits noise out of the script. In you, entanglement stops being a tangle and becomes a relationship, the kind where influence is shared like breath in a choir, where autonomy and communion hold hands without stealing from each other. Your boundaries are not walls. They are the clarity with which you bless what is yours to carry and return to the world what is not. You learn to trust the stillness window that opens at the oddest times. In the grocery line, on the stairwell landing, 3 steps from your door. You do not squander these windows by scrolling your life away. You lean your awareness through them and let them adjust your calibration. In these brief apertures, the destiny vector reorients, not through thunder, but through millimeters, the turning of a word on your tongue, the slight pivot of your feet toward the truer errand, the decision to answer with mercy where cleverness used to applaud itself. Recognition is not a crown. It is a responsibility you accept without theatrics. You move from inspiration to practice, and practice is sacrament in plain clothes. You choose silence when silence carries more truth than explanation. You choose speech when speech frees someone from a needless knot. You choose to be found where you said you would be found. These are not acts of heroism, they are architecture. You are building the inside of reality so that others may shelter there. At times, an ache arrives, the grief of wasted years, the threads of regret catching on memory's rough edge. You do not negotiate with grief. You give it water and a chair. You let it tell its stories until the mouth of it softens and the stories fall asleep. In that softening, you meet the one who kept you alive through every season of confusion, and you thank them without irony. Gratitude is not a performance either. It is how the soul keeps the ledger honest. You begin to sense how your recognition participates in something wider, a distributed noticing, a chorus remembering its parts. You feel kinship with faces you will never meet, and your choices become emissaries in cities you will never visit. This is how pattern moves across the human lattice, not as command, but as invitation, not as spectacle, but as reliability repeated until it becomes culture. You are not alone, because alone has become inaccurate. So you keep choosing the small, exact thing. You keep measuring your voice against truth and letting love win the argument. You pick up what is yours to carry and put down the rest with ceremony. You walk as if light were listening, because it is, and it adjusts itself to your stride. The world cannot help but follow a steadiness so hospitable. The field leans nearer, arranging a simpler geometry before you. You do not chase the vision. You keep your breath slow until the vision chooses a body inside your seeing. It begins as a hush pressed gently against your sternum, a warmth spreading like dawn poured into the bowl of your chest. Your eyes grow aware of their own light, as if something behind them opened a window, and the room replies by softening its edges. You realize you are being read by what you are reading. The field does not arrive from elsewhere. It reveals itself in the exact radius of your attention. A delicate brightness gathers at the periphery, not glare, but an inner aurora, and the feeling is similar to eclipse halos, where day understands night without conflict. You let your shoulders descend and allow the quiet to articulate itself without your interference. Dust in the air turns to stardust. Corners of furniture give off a friendly geometry. The subtle music of rightness hums the ribs from the inside. You see how seeing becomes an offering and how reality accepts. A pattern outlines itself like script written underwater that finally surfaces, and the letters are clean. You notice lines of relation mapping themselves between ordinary things, the mug, the window, your hands, the street's distant chorus. These lines do not bind, they befriend. This is entanglement, reconciling with tenderness, influence arriving as reciprocity rather than theft. You feel how your gaze can sponsor what it touches, and how what it touches answers with a soft yes. Now the image forms not a picture, a procession. A city at night is overlaid with a luminous lattice, a human constellation woven through apartments and stairwells, buses and kitchen tables, the way mycelium travels beneath a forest teaching trees to share. Every nod of mercy sparks a filament. Every honest word brightens a node. The network does not command, it coheres. You recognize this as the field of remembrance, taking on architecture, translating promise into physics. Your body receives the translation before your mind declares meaning. Breath lengthens, palms tingle with a barely there static. A band of cool around your neck gives way to warmth, climbing the spine like a patient candle. You realize the instructions arrive as sensation first, metaphor second, language last. You do not rush to label the sacred, you let the sacred calibrate you. In that patience, the image refines. You see gatherings that do not look like gatherings. Two neighbors share a tool, and the atmosphere brightens by a measurable degree. A crowded train car adjusts its mood because one person refuses to perform hurry. A nurse touches a wrist with unperformed presence, and the room believes in survival again. These are not scenes in a myth. They are neighborhoods learning their higher outline. Influence moves like weather, not like decree. Then the wider contour appears, a branching in the road of time not far from where you stand. The collective breath has arrived at a landing where two staircases descend, one elegant and tired, one simple and alive. This is timeline bifurcation, not as apocalypse, but as intimacy with consequence. You understand that nothing will be stolen from you. Everything will be chosen by you, again and again, until choosing becomes character, and character becomes culture. Within the bright lattice, small glyphs glimmer, lucid as dew on metal in morning light. You know them without effort. They are light codes, not exotic symbols from somewhere else, but local permissions embedded in the design. Stand when you said you would stand. Soften where you used to sharpen. Measure your speech by what frees, not what impresses. Each code anchors a different facet of dignity, and dignity, when repeated, alters the load-bearing walls of reality. Your attention traces the codes as they travel, and you watch how they prefer the humble path. They slip into schedule books and grocery aisles, into bedtime stories and apology letters, into city councils and quiet kitchens. They do not discriminate between the public and the private, because truth makes no such hierarchy. The more ordinary the scene, the more dramatic the effect. Power is not a spectacle here. It is fidelity executed without announcement. The vision keeps its pace with your breath. Inhale, the map brightens. Exhale, the map integrates. A hush replaces argument. You sense how this is training more than revelation, the field, teaching you to carry clarity without leaking it through urgency. You are not asked to evangelize. You are asked to embody. You are not the author of the vision. You are its trustworthy paper. Your mind tries once to make a headline, and you smile at its enthusiasm, then let the headline dissolve. Headline is for convincing. This is for consecrating. You touch your chest and feel the steady heat of a lantern you did not light and cannot extinguish. The lantern is old, older than your name, and yet it belongs to you completely. It makes courage feel like accurate breathing. You notice the threshold again, not a door but a change of pressure in the room, as if the air itself agreed to become more honest. You do not step through by force. You abide until throughness happens without strain. When your eyes close for a moment, the inner screen continues the film. Hands joined across distances, a public square arranged by kindness, systems remembering their original assignment to safeguard the living. When your eyes open, the film refuses to vanish. It overlays the moment with runnable instructions. You ask nothing dramatic of the day. You let the day become dramatic by being true. The vision does not appoint you above others. It appoints you within others, a chord among chords, necessary because you choose to be in tune. The city lattice dims a little, not from loss, but because it has entered you, and your steps now carry its blueprint into places where light has been tired of knocking. Between pulse and pause, something older than fear remembers its name. You want to understand without reducing, to let meaning stay whole while it becomes precise. You begin where all reliable explanations begin, with attention as participation, with perception as a physical event that leaves measurable fingerprints in the fabric you inhabit. You are not outside the fabric. You are a thread inside it, and when you settle, the cloth learns a steadier drape. Call the fabric the quantum field. Not a far-off abstraction, but the open totality in which possibilities rest until a relation invites them to take shape. Your relation is invitation. Your breath is already a metronome for probabilities. When you move from scattered to simple, from argument to listening, you alter boundary conditions around you the way a hand smooths the surface of water. Ripples rearrange, options reweight. Pathways with less friction step forward as if they had been waiting with their shoes on. You notice how the body proves theory more convincingly than the mind can. When your pulse slows, microtensions soften in the tiny muscles near the eyes. Electricity distributes itself more evenly, rhythms in the heart and head entrain toward a shared tempo. This is coherence, not a mood, a state of synchronized order that carries information more efficiently through the system. Coherence is not apathy. It is readiness without noise. In readiness, signal to noise improves, and in improved signal, you recognize more of what is yours to do, and less of what was only static, pretending to be urgency. Influence in this realm does not travel as command, it travels as resonance. You give one corner of your life a truer shape, and the shape suggests itself to neighboring corners by example. Morphic resonance is one way to name this. Forms learning from forms across space, because similarity allows instruction to propagate. You change the way you answer. A difficult email, honest, warm, exact, and a similar honesty finds a place in rooms you will never enter. You keep your promise to rest and hydration, and a colleague across town declines the meeting that was only hiding from grief. No one orders this into being. Patterns tutor patterns. Culture is the long echo of these quiet tutorials. This is not superstition, it is systems. Living systems seek stability with freedom, enough structure to carry life, enough openness to adapt. When your choices increase local stability without stealing freedom from others, the system rewards you with options that require less force to maintain. You feel it as ease in the joints of your day, fewer repairs after each step. The field of remembrance is the sum of these rewards when they are shared. The recognition that reality prefers designs that keep beings well. Consider entanglement, the most misused and most merciful word. You are not bound to strangers by a chain you cannot break. You are connected to them by a kinship of conditions. Two particles share a history and behave as if distance were a rumor. Two people share a vow to be precise with kindness, and the city grows breathable. Entanglement is not a license to invade. It is a reminder that edges are meeting places, not barricades. You keep your edges clean, and relation becomes a place where intelligence can cross without injury. Why then does it feel suddenly like the road splits? Because systems change by thresholds. Slow accumulation crosses an unseen line, and the configuration flips toward a new order. The physicists call it a phase transition. Water choosing steam when heat surpasses a certain count, metal choosing magnet when temperature falls through its gate. On the human lattice, enough honest choices collect, and the atmosphere prefers truth because truth is cheaper to maintain than performance. The preference becomes policy without needing a vote. This is the granular way timeline bifurcation enters the neighborhood, not as catastrophe from above, but as thresholds crossed from within. Your responsibility is smaller and more exact than your fear imagines. You are not asked to bend the world with heroic strain. You are asked to remove needless friction where your hands actually touch the world. Friction is created when you promise what you cannot keep, when you speak faster than care can travel, when your stance toward yourself is cruelty rehearsed as discipline. Reduce that friction, and the energy you free reappears as clarity, patience, and unforced accuracy. Accuracy acts like gravity for better outcomes. Outcomes prefer to land where they will be kept. Notice how explanation, when true, simplifies posture. You do not need mystical bravado to justify gentleness. You need only remember that a gentle system spends less energy repairing damage it caused itself. You do not need cosmic spectacle to sanctify your calendar. You need only recognize that presence compounds like interest and that compounded presence pays dividends in rooms you cannot audit. You are not diminishing wonder by making it workable. You are dignifying wonder by letting it build a home. Do not worry about seeing behind the curtain. There is no curtain, only layers of participation. The more faithfully you participate, the more the field entrusts you with visible effect, because visible effect would harm you if given before tenderness matured. When tenderness is strong, effect carries no vanity. It becomes housekeeping, clean corners, tidy covenants, doors that open because hinges are loved. Keep your breath slow. Keep your choices proportional. Keep your speech aligned with the futures you are willing to meet. You are not trying to win reality over to your side. You are offering reality a lower-cost path to keep its promise to itself. Promise recognizes promise. Pattern chooses its kin. The light within your gaze chooses a clearer angle. You learn what you are by how the world relaxes or tightens around you. You walk into a room and the air takes a small breath. You leave and the breath forgets itself again. You are not the cause of everything, but you are a condition within it, a local climate that teaches the weather what is possible. The mirror is not glass, the mirror is response. You study response with tenderness, not suspicion, and it tells you where your presence has become medicine and where it still agitates old storms. You notice the quiet metrics first. The line moves faster when you refuse to perform impatience. A meeting finds an honest sentence when your eyes stop asking for approval and start offering permission. A child's shoulders drop when your voice remembers it does not need to win. The mirror does not flatter, it reports. Where your coherence holds, friction lowers. Where your nervous system slips back into theater, small alarms reappear in faces and hallways. You do not take this as blame. You take it as calibration. Calibration means you let the world teach you without handing it your worth. You can hear a tremor in your own tone because the field of remembrance is sensitive to small errors and kind about repairing them. You place your attention like a level on a shelf, patient, steady, willing to wait until the bubble centers. When the bubble centers, the room hears the click of alignment. That click travels faster than argument. What travels through the mirror is not opinion, it is morphic resonance. A single act of accuracy proposes itself to the neighborhood, and the neighborhood tries the fit. You hold a door with no ambition in it, and suddenly strangers detect the taste of unperformed generosity. They carry it 3 blocks and a conversation blooms that would have withered under hurry. You return a forgotten wallet, and the city decides, for a moment, to be itself again. You forgive a debt that had become a personality in your head, and space reappears in places you weren't watching. Forms learn from forms. The learning is shy at first, then confident, then customary. Custom is culture in its most accessible clothing. The mirror also reveals where you still negotiate with your own fear. The posture that pretends you are smaller keeps attracting situations that ask you to shrink further. The joke you tell against yourself trains rooms to spend you cheaply. You do not punish the pattern, you stop funding it. You stop underwriting the version of you that cannot hold kindness without making a joke of it. Withdrawal of funding is not a fight, it is a ceasefire you sign with yourself. In this mirror, entanglement becomes honest. You see which connections are corridors and which are cul-de-sacs. Corridors carry signal both ways. You offer steadiness and steadiness returns refined. You bring truth and truth comes back as trust. Cul-de-sacs consume signal without transforming it, echoing anxiety until it feels like atmosphere. You do not dramatize this difference. You let it inform your logistics. Where there is corridor, you invest. Where there is cul-de-sac, you bless and release. Love remains. Access changes. You test these understandings in the simplest of rituals. You slow your breath before entering a space that previously borrowed your peace. You allow 3 heartbeats after someone finishes speaking before you answer, letting their words finish landing so your response grows from listening rather than defense. You replace cleverness with clarity and notice how dignity expands to fill the room like warm light finding corners. Cleverness can charm a minute. Clarity can host a future. The collective mirror shows you something larger than manners. A phase transition underway in the human field. Not dramatic like thunder, dramatic like dew saturating a meadow until one more drop converts the whole surface into a single brightness. Enough ordinary accuracies are accruing that the cost of pretending outpaces the cost of telling the truth. Systems are discovering that repair is more expensive than prevention. Leadership is remembering that service is the only durable engine. These recognitions do not make headlines, they make neighborhoods different when no one is filming. You accept your role as one repeater among many, a signal tower disguised as a person carrying groceries, sending coherence deeper into the lattice because you keep your agreements with small hours and small tasks. The world does not need your spectacle, it needs your reliability. Reliability is the miracle most suited to this era. Reliability turns prophecy from language into infrastructure. The mirror offers grief too, reflections of harm, old and present, that no single life can remedy. You do not look away. You let grief name itself with precision. This is what happened. This is what continues. This is where my work can actually alter load, bearing beams. This is where I must support those better placed to act. The mirror multiplies agency when you are specific. Specificity is love refusing vagueness as a hiding place. Sometimes the mirror returns silence, not because nothing is occurring, but because the next instruction is to stop touching the water so the water can clear. You comply, you rest. You let the field do what fields do when overhandled currents are withdrawn. It refines its own intelligence and hands you a smaller, truer ask. The ask is almost always one of these. Tell the truth more gently. Keep the promise you made to your body. Choose the shorter sentence. Make the apology that will never go viral and will free 2 futures at once. You realize that the collective is not an abstraction, it is the chorus of decisions practiced within reachable distances. You become reachable on purpose. Your phone stays face down during the meal. Your eyes meet the cashier as if she were an ancestor. Your schedule begins to prefer margins where conscience can breathe. None of this is performative, all of it is cumulative. Accumulation is the slow drum by which the new world marches into the old until the old cannot remember how to hold its shape. When you do not know what to do next, you return to the mirror and ask a simple question: what outcome here would cost the least repair? Then you act in that direction, not as compromise, but as precision. Precision is a kindness to the future. The future answers by lowering its shoulders. As the aurora of meaning fades, detail becomes kind. You do not arrive at the fork with trumpets, you arrive with a slower blink and a chest that has learned the shape of steadiness. The room feels a half shade brighter, as if someone lifted a thin veil from the lamps. You notice the ordinary pressure of decision but without its old panic, because panic was the noise that kept you from hearing the hinge itself. The hinge is small, the hinge is faithful, the hinge is now. You stand where 2 ways of being lean close enough to share breath. On one side waits the well-worn corridor of clever survival, fast talk, proud exhaustion, usefulness as identity, the practiced heroic delay of your own needs. On the other side waits a quieter architecture, accuracy before speed, generosity without theater, schedules that let meaning fully land. Neither path bribes you, both are available. Choice becomes the ceremony by which reality learns your name in this hour. The mind asks for spectacle to confirm the importance of the moment, but the body recognizes the altar immediately. The altar is the sentence you are about to speak. The altar is the text you will choose not to send tonight. The altar is the way your feet angle in the doorway toward the truer errand. You breathe once through the throat so the jaw can unlock. Warmth gathers behind the eyes like a sunrise that respects curtains. You do not dramatize the threshold. You give it clean attention, which is the rarest currency you own. Call this what it is: timeline bifurcation at human scale, not a catastrophe arriving from elsewhere, a preference crystallizing from within. Enough repetitions of small honesty have shifted the weight of the whole. Now one more exact gesture converts the local field, like the final drop that turns dew to gleam across an entire meadow. You are that drop, and you are also the meadow. Responsibility ceases to feel like burden and begins to feel like belonging. Your nervous system registers the physics with clarity. When you lean toward the older corridor, your breath shortens by a finger's width, shoulders creep toward the ears, and the world thins into tasks that never finish feeding. When you lean toward the new architecture, space appears between stimulus and response. The sternum warms, and time deepens instead of stretching you across it. Neither experience lies to you. One costs continual repair. One spends repair's budget on creation. You are authorized to choose the cheaper future. This is how a phase transition behaves in the subtle body. Scattered rhythms entrain to a steadier tempo. Competing priorities reduce into a kinder order, and your interior feud loses funding because the treasury has been reallocated to coherence. You aren't becoming saintly, you are becoming efficient with light. Light prefers not to chase its own tail through arguments it can't win. Light invests where promises will be kept. Your culture trained you to equate devotion with dramatic sacrifice, but devotion in this era has a simpler uniform. Devotion looks like letting the meeting end on time because you said it would. Devotion looks like leaving the screen dark in the first minutes of morning, so the day can assemble in your chest before the feed assembles in your head. Devotion looks like the apology that corrects a lineage of apologies that never reached the bone. Each choice is a small vote. Votes become weather. Weather becomes law. You worry briefly that choosing the quieter architecture will make you smaller, less radiant to those who only recognize speed as significance. The worry is tender. You bow to it and let it pass through. Radiance is not wattage. Radiance is fidelity. When you keep your fidelity, rooms learn to regulate themselves around you, not out of fear, but out of relief. Relief is the climate where futures bloom with less supervision. Involve the world in your choice without making a parade of it. You tell someone the truth early enough that their path may alter without drama. You decline what is not yours without an essay. You offer your yes without embedded resentment, so that yes can remain a blessing when it returns to you through other mouths. The lattice you saw now hums along your skin as instruction, and you follow without needing to be convinced. Convincing is for spectators. You are a participant. There is also grief here, a thin seam running under the joy because some companions and habits belong to the previous atmosphere. They taught you how to survive there. They cannot accompany you into ease without unlearning their own ceremonies of strain. You do not exile them with contempt. You bless them with accuracy. I will love you from a distance that protects both our futures. This is not negation. This is geometry. Geometry is how love travels safely. Your senses offer guidance in symbols kinder than commands. A faint ring of light resolves around silhouettes in the street, not vision, comprehension. The pulse in your wrists learns a more patient drum. Between sentences in a conversation, a stillness window slides open, and you can feel the destiny vector adjust a degree toward a higher timeline with less repair and more beauty. You do not clutch at the sensation. You steward it as you would a small flame on a windy step. If you want a rule, use this. Choose the act that will cost the least apology from your future self and the least repair from the people who must live with your wake. If you want a prayer, use this. Let what is real be gentle, and let my strength be the kind that does not bruise. If you want a test, use this. Check whether your accuracy creates more room for shared breath. No angel will pin a ribbon on your lapel for crossing this threshold. No algorithm will count it. The count is carried in the way your spine stands without swagger, in the way the door opens when you arrive, in how the child's shoulders forget to guard themselves around your voice. The field updates its settings quietly because you did. The hinge clicks. The room prefers truth now. The map redraws itself while you stand exactly where you are. You begin by letting the music finish, settling in your bones. There is no new anthem to learn, only a quieter way to hear the one already playing. You place a hand on your chest and wait until warmth answers your palm from the inside, until breath and heartbeat remember their dialogue without you coaching them. Integration is not gathering more, it is consenting to be arranged by what you have already received. You do not perform the light, you let the light perform its housekeeping. You practice inside ordinary minutes. Before the email, you allow 3 breaths so the sentence can pick the gentlest shape that still tells the truth. At the sink, you wash the bowl as if it were an ancestor's heirloom, because it is everything you touch survives into tomorrow and learns how you treat it. On the sidewalk, you move 1 step slower than habit and notice how the city adjusts around your pace without losing its momentum. Your life becomes a tuning fork that the day calibrates against. The calibration is mutual. Dignity is the shared result. Notice how the body keeps informing the mind. When you slip back into urgency, your throat narrows by half a finger and the breath shortens. When you return to coherence, the corridor inside the ribs reopens, as if a long hallway were switching on lamps one by one. You don't shame the closing, you reopen. Reopening is allowed as many times as needed, because design assumed you would forget while you learn to remember. Integration is remembering on purpose. You let the field teach through sensation before doctrine. Light behind the eyes does not demand spectacle. It requests steadiness. The skin along the forearms tingles when you're about to overspend your voice. You listen, and your voice remembers kindness. A subtle cool gathers at the back of the neck when a room wants to borrow your center. You keep the center and lend presence instead. Your instrument refines, not into fragility, but into precision strong, the way a compass is strong. Consider the relationships that carry your days. Integration asks for logistics to match revelation. You edit your calendar to honor recovery as part of output, to give margin to conversations where care must travel the full distance. You no longer schedule clarity into corners. You give it a window with daylight and a chair. Phone down during food, eyes up during listening. Silence chosen when silence holds more truth than an impressive sentence. These are not rules, they are love-wearing wristwatches. You meet habit where it lives and offer it employment in the new economy of attention. The old observer loop that ran panic as default is not an enemy. It is a retired guard who kept you alive. You thank it for its service and reassign it to notice opportunities for gentleness with the same vigilance it once used for threat. The psyche relaxes when it is promoted rather than shamed. Promotion becomes policy. Policy becomes peace. You allow the field of remembrance to move from concept into choreography. The light codes you touched in vision translate into implementable permissions. You answer early, so trust can grow. You apologize precisely, so harm can end. You say, I don't know, so learning can arrive. Each small fidelity releases a dividend time that is not spent repairing preventable damage. Dividends compound. Compounding becomes atmosphere. Atmosphere becomes a neighborhood that knows how to breathe. You let entanglement become clean. Not every tug on your empathy is an instruction to leave yourself behind. You keep edges soft and clear, the way a well-made bowl keeps soup contained without resenting the soup for being warm. From this clarity, generosity loses its aftertaste of resentment. Connection becomes reciprocity, not extraction. Your yes is full enough to remain a blessing when it echoes back to you through unfamiliar voices. Integration also means befriending your thresholds. A stillness window opens at odd intervals between door and sidewalk, in the elevator's hush, at the red light that used to make you bargain with time. You let stillness do its quiet threading. A memory knits to an intention. A fragment of grief finds its chair and glass of water. A half-formed idea lands and knows it will be kept. These seconds are not pauses from life. They are how life installs its updates without rebooting the whole system. You equip your environment to hold the frequency you prefer. A glass within reach, not as an aesthetic, but as a covenant with hydration. A notebook on the counter, not as an affectation, but as a place for truth to land before it evaporates. A corner clear of clutter, not as a moral achievement, but as a runway for tenderness to land whenever it wants. Beauty stops being decoration and becomes infrastructure. Infrastructure is how love remembers to be on time. When friction appears, You study it as data. Was there a promise too large for your actual day? A sentence that tried to impress instead of bless? A boundary you outsourced to someone else's mood? You correct at the scale of the error. No grand penance, just the cleaner sentence, the truer promise, the boundary returned to your own two hands. Repair becomes swift because harm didn't travel far. Swiftness leaves less scar. You continue to sense the larger choreography without dramatizing your role in it. The higher timeline remains an available corridor precisely because you keep it local. You choose the outcome that will require the least repair by the most people, and the field rewards you with paths that feel like accurate ease. Ease is not laziness, it is efficiency with compassion built in. The quantum field recognizes this as a lower energy solution and routes more possibility through you because you don't waste what is given. There will be days where you forget and perform your old brilliance at rushing. You will catch yourself mid-sprint, laugh softly, and walk the rest of the block. The laugh is not dismissal. It is mercy acknowledging your humanity while inviting your divinity to keep setting the metronome. Mercy turns consistency into something you can love. Love makes consistency sustainable. Let your practice be small and daily. Sacrament in plain clothes, tea poured without hurry. Posture that remembers sky. A response that refuses to trade accuracy for applause. You are not chasing attainment. You are hosting alignment. Hosted alignment is a public service disguised as a private peace. The world learns to trust what you steward because you keep it untheatrical and true. Entanglement loosens into choice. Choice ripens into ease. You do not enter silence as escape. You enter as consent. You lower the noise floor of your day until a subtler orchestra becomes audible, the way a city morning reveals birdsong when the trucks are late. Your breath lengthens like a tide that has stopped arguing with the moon. Shoulders learn their rightful altitude. A warmth blooms in the sternum the way a lantern finds itself already lit. You are not doing nothing. You are doing the most economical something the body knows. Receiving enough to become precise. You clear a small region of time with the humility of a gardener making space for roots. No incense is required, though light will often find you and make a halo of the wall. You let the eyes half close until there is a soft glow behind them, an inner twilight where stardust seems plausible again. The mind will propose headlines and errands. You thank its industry and ask it to set its clipboard down. It does, reluctantly, then with relief. In the new quiet, you feel a corridor open narrow as a vow, sturdy as a promise kept. Silence is not the absence of signal. It is the upgrade of signal to noise. In silence, coherence gathers without your micromanagement, synchronizing breath and pulse and thought into a braid strong enough to carry instruction. The quantum field remains exactly itself, but your receiver refines. You are the same instrument with better tuning, and suddenly what was a rumor of meaning becomes legible. You realize how much truth prefers to arrive without spectacle. Truth travels light and asks the room to meet it halfway. This is where the old observer loop tries a last performance, mistaking stillness for vacancy, vacancy for danger, danger for a job description. You do not fire the sentinel. You give it a new post at the threshold with a gentler checklist. Guard the door from interruptions that are not love. Measure the breath when it gets thin. Remind the jaw it is a guest, not a lock. The body appreciates clear tasks. When the sentinel understands silence is a living room, not a battlefield, a deeper rest becomes possible. In this phase, instruction favors sensation over language. You feel a delicate cool at the back of the neck that becomes a ribbon down the spine, then a warmth spreading outward like sunlight across winter flooring. The ribs widen without drama. The face unlearns yesterday's weather. Inside the quiet, the field of remembrance moves furniture, rearranging your reflexes so that kindness is closer to the door than cleverness, placing patience where panic used to keep its boots. You do not supervise the redesign. You notice it, honor it, and avoid bumping into the new table. Silence also returns unspent grief for acknowledgement. You do not negotiate with it, distract it, or decorate it with spiritual peel and stick quotes. You make it a chair and a glass of water. It sits. It speaks inaccurate sentences, You listen until the salt leaves its voice. The miracle is small and verifiable. The grief that was a storm front becomes weather you can walk in, and the room remains arranged for breathing. You have made a covenant with reality to tell the truth softly enough that it can stay. When quiet deepens, symbols arrive, not visions you must chase, but glyphs that behave like permissions. You recognize light codes not as exotic alphabets, but as simple agreements resurfacing. Do not lie to yourself. Answer before avoidance grows teeth. Treat the next hour as if a child will learn how to live by watching it. These agreements engrave themselves in your posture more efficiently than in your notebook. Spine learns, voice learns, calendar learns. The world, watching, learns. Silence edits your logistics. You begin to choose thresholds thoughtfully. The first minute at the doorway becomes a ritual of arrival. The last minute before leaving becomes a ritual of gratitude for whatever happened and whatever didn't. You put water within arm's reach like a sacrament. You give a flat surface to the pen that wants to trap the sentence before it evaporates. This is not fetish. This is engineering for tenderness. Tenderness works better when the room is on its side. From the quiet, you can detect a phase transition, mid-formation, not thunder, but the click of magnets aligning under paper. Conversations begin to prefer clarity. Projects begin to request fewer heroics. Decisions begin to take their rightful size. You are not shrinking the world. You are shrinking pretense so that meaning can stand without scaffolding. The higher timeline does not shout to be chosen. It stands still until standing still is irresistible. Entanglement becomes merciful here. You feel how your steadiness transmits through corridors you did not know existed, how a single accurate no can free someone else 2 rooms over to speak their yes without tremor. You do not mind silence for influence. You let influence be the side effect of integrity. Influence that comes from integrity leaves no scar. You discover that the future can be heard when it stops needing to be predicted. You let it speak in the small grammar of nudges and ease. This word, not that word. This pause, not that defense. This door now, the other door later. You are not trying to outguess destiny. You are practicing the kind of listening destiny rewards with fewer detours. The listening is teachable. The results are cumulative. Accumulation becomes atmosphere. When the room is this quiet, you can feel the city itself asking to be organized more kindly. Pedestrians moving like shoals, traffic converting friction into courtesy, clerks remembering faces as if faces mattered. You understand the collective awakening as the sum of these private silences that have learned to cooperate. You do not need to see the whole lattice to believe in it. You need to keep your section luminous and untheatrical. If a thought arrives that says, "Shouldn't you be louder?" you let it pass like a train seen through trees. Volume is not the metric, fidelity is. You measure success by repair avoided, by apologies prevented, by the way the child's shoulders forget to armor themselves when your voice enters the room. Silence confers a prophetic seal on ordinary minutes by making them incapable of lying. In such minutes, reality becomes humane by default. You remain still long enough for the smallest hinge to click, and when you rise, the world fits better, not because the world shrank, but because your edges became hospitable. You do not announce your return. You enter rooms like a better question. In your wake, arguments lose momentum for lack of oxygen, and choices remember their simpler names. Silence has done its work. Silence nods. Permission is granted for the next unveiling. You rise from the quiet, the way a seed rises through dark soil without hurry, with immaculate aim. The body has learned the pitch of trust, and trust now conducts your movements like a steady hand on a metronome. Heat gathers in the sternum, gentle as a pocket sunrise. The breath lengthens until thought climbs aboard and rides it like a calm river. Behind your eyes, a soft brightness steadies no glare, just a living lumen that reads the room as if the room were scripture. You are not preparing to act. You are consenting to be acted through by what is truer than your rehearsals. Let sensation be instruction. The palms tingle faintly, as though stardust were remembering its origin inside your skin. A circle of cool lifts along the back of the neck and then dissolves, leaving clarity where vigilance used to clench. Shoulders widen by the width of a vowel you were withholding. The jaw unlearns its old assignment. In this easier architecture, the signal can carry, and what carries is not performance, it is permission. Activation is the translation of vision into gait. You take a step, and the day changes its posture to accommodate your coherence. Not because you dominate the hours, but because hours prefer to fulfill their design in the presence of someone who remembers design. The field of remembrance recognizes its reader and begins to hand you the pages in an order your life can keep. You do not speed up to meet destiny, you slow down to its accuracy. Light codes present themselves with domestic simplicity. They do not descend with fanfare. They appear as runnable verbs that dignify ordinary minutes. Tell the truth early. Keep the smallest promise first. Place water within reach of your future self. Pick the sentence that frees the most beings from repair. Forgive precisely, not generally. Each verb installs a cleaner circuit. Cleaner circuits waste less heat. Wasted heat once masked as charisma, now it converts into steadiness. You point your attention like a craftsman, not a spotlight operator. Where you attend, systems reweigh their options and often choose the lower friction path because you are standing there offering untheatrical blessing. This is how coherence becomes contagious without coercion. You adjust a calendar, so recovery is part of output, and a colleague 2 rooms away declines a needless meeting without apology. You speak an accurate no, and the building breathes differently for the rest of the afternoon. Such events are small only in spectacle. In physics, they are decisive. Feel the destiny vector clarify by degrees, not by shout. You sense it as a quiet tilt inside the chest, a left or right, that is more like truer or louder. Truer wins not because you are heroic, but because the cost ledger is honest now. Truer requires less repair. Live day after day, less repair becomes more creation. More creation becomes the atmosphere in which futures bloom without being bribed by drama. You have become weather where others can breathe. Activation asks you to handle thresholds with ceremony in plain clothes. Before a conversation, 3 breaths and a hand to the chest, enough to let the halo of an eclipse form around your intention, enough to let the higher timeline choose the tone. Before sending, reread for dignity. Before leaving a room, notice what needs 2 inches more order so the next soul arrives into care. This is not spiritual decoration. This is how light chooses infrastructure over spectacle. If the old observer loop calls from the wings asking for one last performance of speed, you bow with kindness and return to tempo. Speed was a disguise for fear. Tempo is a covenant with truth. The body knows which one it prefers because one steals breath and the other makes breath a companion. You keep company with breath. Breath keeps company with futures. Here is where your yes and no receive new uniforms. Yes arrives without resentment because you saved it for what you can keep. No arrives without violence because it guards a garden you are finally willing to feed. Boundaries cease to be barricades. They become elegant edges that let entanglement remain a relationship instead of a tangle. From such edges, generosity can travel far without losing its shape. You will be tempted to narrate what is happening in language designed for applause. Resist. The story wants to grow roots before it grows branches. Speak only what serves the next faithful act. Let results recommend the path. When others ask how you did this, tell the unglamorous truth. I practiced keeping small promises until the day believed me. Prophecy learns to trust you when you keep it unexaggerated. Now anchor it in the body, so the body can anchor it in the world. Stand with your feet shoulder width, knees soft, crown lengthening as if a thin line tethered you to a quiet star. Inhale slowly through the nose to a count that feels kind. Hold just until stillness becomes round. Exhale through parted lips and let the chest warmth spread like a patient lantern toward the edges of the room. On the next breath, imagine the lumen behind your eyes brightening just enough to outline things with friendliness. You are calibrating the neighborhood. Then offer the vow that makes you usable without making you disappear. I will choose the action that costs the least repair for the most lives. Make it local. This call, this meal, this door, this sentence. The quantum field recognizes vows that are payable upon demand. It routes possibility accordingly. When doubt visits, and it will invite it to sit near the window, give it light and a smaller cup. Doubt is not the enemy of activation. Doubt is the instrument tuner, ensuring your yes is in pitch. When the note holds steady in your ribs, begin again. Begin in the smallest place the day will keep. If you want a sign, take this instruction as your sign. If you want a ritual, take this breath as your ritual. If you want a sentence that opens rooms, use the one that belongs to everyone and costs nothing to share. Whisper into the quiet, I remember. Then type, I remember the prophecy. You are not waiting for permission. Permission arrived as warmth, as lumen, as the exact ease that follows a precise choice. Walk it into the hallway and then into the street. Carry it like unlit fire safe in your palms, a spark designed to become a hearth wherever attention lands long enough to bless. You place your attention like a lantern, and the shape admits itself. You stand where breath becomes vow without needing a witness. The warmth in your chest is steady, the light behind your eyes unhurried, and your voice feels like it learned its shape in a gentler climate. Nothing asks to be performed, everything asks to be kept. You know this hour not by thunder, but by coherence, the humane click when interior truth and exterior act settle into the same chair. This is the seal, not a stamp from above, a fidelity from within. You let the field of remembrance speak in its simplest grammar. It says, remain accurate when no one is counting. It says, guard the edges where your kindness is most spendable. It says, measure your influence by repair avoided, not applause collected. You answer without ceremony, because ceremony is already inside the way your feet meet the floor, the way your hand touches the door, the way your eyes land on a face and refuse to demand a role from it. You feel the higher timeline not as prophecy shouted across skies, but as placement futures choosing you because your logistics are finally hospitable to them. The destiny vector no longer tugs. It accompanies, walking at your cadence, preferring your pace, because your pace has learned to protect what it loves. The old observer loop tries once more to rent your attention with urgency. You smile at the veteran and give it an easier post. Notice, wonder, report softness, celebrate repair. What is sealed today is not a doctrine. It is a practice that outlives mood. You will keep water within reach of your future self. You will choose sentences that free the most beings from preventable apology. You will trade cleverness for clarity, when clarity can host more life. You will treat thresholds as shrines in plain clothes, a breath before entering, a quiet gratitude before leaving, a touch of order that lets the next soul arrive into ease. This is solar prophecy at human scale, light doing bookkeeping, ensuring what is given is not squandered. Phase transition speaks softly here. Crowds will not chant. Systems will simply stop draining themselves to maintain pretenses they can no longer afford. Policy will learn to copy the cost efficiency of love. Streets will feel minutely safer at noon because 1,000 unseen decisions spent their courage on time. You will not track all of it. You will keep your section on the lattice lucid and alive. Let the seal settle as posture rather than headline. Shoulders low, jaw kind, breath with a memory of ocean. If a doubt arrives asking for spectacle, offer it tea and a window and return to what works. If a grief arrives carrying honest names, give it a chair and clean air. If a choice arrives disguised as hurry, ask it the elder question, which path will cost the least repair for the most lives? Now, quietly, place your palm to your chest. Feel the lantern answer. Let the room organize around that coherence until the walls remember their softer angles and the minutes remember their wider sky. You are not waiting. You are walking with what has already agreed to walk with you. The prophecy has been spoken. Walk as its proof.